Hi, welcome to another session with Ian Wallace, the Messed Up Counsellor. The process today I'd like to look at is skills and abilities, and what's easy for you and hard for others, and how we see the world really with those processes. So I kind of think I'm good at some things, but I don't see the things I do as being a skill. So I'll give an example of that. I'm really intuitive. So with my work as a counsellor and a therapist, I kind of get to understand people, even if they're not telling me how they're feeling. I can kind of get a sense of it. So for me, that's normal. That's natural. It's been part of my world forever. It's not something I've necessarily learnt, but it's something I understand about myself now and I trust. But I wouldn't initially, in the early days, see that as being a skill. I would think everybody could do that because I can do it. And it's not until I started kind of looking at myself in a bit more detail that I kind of realised the things I do that come naturally to me normally, the things that don't seem as though they're hard, they seem easy, is actually a skill and an ability. Now, when I kind of realised that fairly early on in my counselling career, I kind of thought then that those things that I see as being easy and simple for me to do are not easy and simple for other people. But we don't think of it that way, do we? We think everybody can do it. You know, if we see something as easy, then well, everybody finds that easy, don't they? We then kind of don't take on board how hard it is for other people to understand what we do or how we do what we do, our skill. And we can then get into a situation where we kind of don't connect with other people when they can't do something we do easily. Well, everybody can do that, can't they? Kind of conversation. Well, no, they can't. It's easy for you, but it's not easy for other people. So when we're looking at these abilities that we have and skills, some of them, as I've said, are very natural for us. They're just like washing your hair, just like eating food. It's just part of who you are. It's not something you had to learn. It's just something that's in you or part of you that always has been. So I don't have a good ability, as I've said on previous podcasts, about reading. That's not one ability I do have. And I can't bring forward titles of books and authors when I'm working with my supervisees and training. But I know some of my colleagues who can do that so easy. They don't even have to think. It just rolls off their tongue. Now, for me, that's massively hard to do. But for them, it's just normal. Because it's something they have as part of their world. It's not something they've had to learn or had to kind of focus in on. It's probably always been there. They may have a photographic memory. They may see things and remember things without even referring back to it. I knew somebody once who could read something and then 3 weeks later could give you it back word for word, which was a heck of a weird process to see and be part of. And I saw that as being different because I can't do that. But for him, it was a natural thing. Well, everybody can do that, can't they? Now, he had two sons, and he assumed that their world should be the same as his world, and that they could study, they could read, they could get ready for exams, and they would be as easy as his were, because he could then relay things back word for word. And he found that they had real problems. His pressure on them to be as he was, because he thought that's the way everybody was, not because he's a bad father, mainly gave them a lot of pressure because that's not an ability they had. So sometimes these skills and abilities that we have that we assume everybody can do doesn't necessarily help us. So if something's really easy and you don't have to think about it, you can just do it, then you might need to think about how you are different. Your ability, my ability to suss people out and to check people out and make sure that the feelings and emotions they're having are congruent with the words or the facial features or whatever's going on, that gives me an awful lot of information. It gives me understanding, which helps in my world as a counsellor. But for other people, that might be a really hard process to do. So when you're looking at your world and the things that you find so easy, it's just like drinking a cup of tea, realise that for other people it isn't, and you may need to help them with that understanding. So I kind of like think of things in a different way now, ever since I came to that realisation. Because it makes me aware that, hey, people are not like me. Well, some people are. Obviously, I'm not totally unique. But the people who can't get it are not wrong. They're just different. And they will have other skills and abilities that I don't have, like being able to, off the tongue, remember authors and titles of books. So when we're looking at these interactive processes with other people, friends, family, whoever, then we need to see our skills and abilities that is unique to us. Might not be only us, as I've said, but it might not be the people around you. And so it's a bit like thinking that everybody eats a particular kind of food, and you would just assume that's what they were going to do. But actually, they may eat a different food, and that's okay. It doesn't challenge your world, but it gives them an opening to have a world of their own, to explore their own abilities, their own skills. Don't see people who can't do what you do as wrong. Unfortunately, we do sometimes do that in society because they don't conform to our world. We see them as wrong, not good, bad, whatever it might be. But their world will be different because we all are. And their world needs to be given some respect and valuation of their world and their understanding. And if we can do that, we then can enhance that in them. My skill has been enhanced over years, and I'm much more sensitive, as people sometimes call it, intuitive, than I was maybe 15 years ago, because I'm more aware of my skill, my ability, and kind of working out what it is and how it works and trusting it more. So if we kind of look at other people's skills and abilities, then we can enhance them for them. We can take their process, what they feel comfortable with, what they're good at, and we can add to it by giving it that respect and value. And sometimes when I see parents that are trying to get on with their teenage kids, more so because that's when things change dramatically for most of us, I'll say to them, well, instead of kind of trying to tell them how to live their world, then ask them how their world is. Now, that sounds like a strange thing to say, but it's kind of one of the reasons why most people don't get on at that time of life with that age group. And so to engage with those two people, I'll often say to the parental influence, whoever that might be, try and find something that young person has a skill in, something they can do that you can't, and then ask them to teach you, show you, make you able to do what it is, that skill, that ability. Make them the teacher, make them the parental figure in that role, because that will enable you to have the kind of position of not the expert, not the one who knows everything, which is a good thing, because nobody knows everything. But it gives that young person a process of growing up, a process of being treated in an adult sense of you can show me this because you're good at it, that will not only enhance the relationship between the two people, it will also give that young person a much better process of understanding relationships as they grow up and how they then might have different relationships with their young people or the people around them. It's a really interesting way of doing it. One that the parental figure has to, in a sense, be insecure with that young person. I don't know how to do this. And that young person does. And so our insecurity in not knowing is giving them the feeling that we need them. We want them. They can help us. They can advance us. They can educate us. And that process is a massively connecting process for the two people. Young people usually think that we know it all. And sometimes we tell them we know it all. Do it as I say, not as I do. But in fact, they have their own ideas, their own processes, their understanding. And if we can allow those skills and abilities that they have to impact in input on our world, inform us of how to do something, then we can create a much more bonded relationship, a much more closer relationship, a much more respectful and validating relationship, which is kind of what it's all about. So when you've got a skill and ability that is easy for you, don't automatically assume it's easy for everybody else. And other people's skills and abilities that are hard for you, then just realise and don't put yourself down. Don't think just because you can't do something, you're bad or you're not good or you're somewhere less than. Because we are all unable to do some things well and other things very well. So don't see yourself as being the problem if you can't do something that other people do. If you don't get it, don't worry about it. See the things that you're really good at, the stuff that comes easy to you, and explore them more. Find out how they can be used in a job, in a function, in a role that can benefit other people. My intuitiveness, when I was very young, was called too sensitive. It kind of gave me a feeling of alienation. So I would be not the same as other people. I would be much more introvert than extrovert. Not realizing that the feelings, the emotions, the things I was experiencing was actually other people's. We call that in our world, the counselling world, the process of transference. So if I'm engaging with somebody else and previously before I started engaging with them I was feeling okay, and all of a sudden I'm feeling by engaging with them anxious, then it's probably not my anxiety I'm picking up. It's probably their anxiety I'm picking up and it's transferring to me in my awareness. So I know these things now, but it took me many years to understand that it wasn't me that was the problem. It was me picking up these things which I didn't understand at the time. I do now. And I see that as a massive skill and ability. So it joins me now. It makes me more of an extrovert than an introvert. I don't see those things as being a problem. I see them as being a skill. So when your skills and abilities and the things you do well and easily, just see it as a skill. Not everybody else can do it. And that hopefully will help you connect with people better and explore things with other people, which is kind of what all this podcast is all about, really. It's about how to connect better, how to understand more, how to be closer. And I think if we can do that, we can have a much better life, much better understanding. There was a situation recently on the news which Okay, it might have been a while ago now because these podcasts are filmed in advance. But there was a process where an imam in a mosque was shaking the hand of somebody who had previously been demonstrating against the mosque. And that awareness that both people had in that process of connecting, sharing food from the point of view of the mosque, that brought them together. It got them to be able to talk to each other, understand each other, share things with each other. No, they are not the same people. They'll never see each other from exactly the same position because they are different. But they have this overlap, this interconnection, this understanding, this joining of understanding that makes it easier for them to know each other and be around each other. And the more we can do that as human beings, the more we can accept diversity and difference is okay. It's not this horrible, strange, weird process that we should be scared of. The more education we can have, the more we understand it. And the more we understand something, hopefully, the more we can accept it. And we can see it not as challenging our world, but as joining our world and making that diversity and difference a better world in the future, enhancing us in some senses. I'm hoping that's been interesting for you. It's brought up some possible areas that maybe you don't look at all the time with what's easy and simple for you, and see those skills and abilities that you have and that other people have, and utilise them, enhance them, grow them, and don't worry about the things you can't do. Enjoy the things you can do. My name's Ian Wallace. I'm the Messed Up Counsellor. Take care.